Good evening, folks. I have to keep my voice down a little bit just because the walls of my house are extremely thin. Let me put a notice in here. So let me. There we go. Yeah, I know the title of the stream seems a little bit clickbaity, but that's because there's this trend on Facebook where if I'm sad, it tends to sort of bring out the inner poet in me of sorts. Like the sadness ends up creating something happy and profound. So I figured, you know what? If Facebook is going to be stupid and get rid of their Facebook notes, then maybe YouTube Studio is the next best thing. So you don't really see me wearing this t-shirt a whole lot. It's called Acceptance because it's based on a conference that I got the privilege to chaperone almost 10 years ago, if you look at the date on the t-shirt. And it was all about looking past the cover. So that's what I really like about the majority of this audience. Not that there's enough people listening, that they're able to look beyond just the outward appearance and be able to see deeper into the person. So, this channel, I would like to say right now that this is probably the greatest time my YouTube channel has ever had. Like, I never would have guessed back in 2013 that more people than just folks that met me at conferences would be watching my videos and, for that matter, even liking them. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to change the world, but I didn't necessarily think that this would be how I would do it. So you guys have really surprised me and amazed me. It's really cool what great levels of support you've given me. Hey there, Zoe. Yeah, it's not too much sadness. It's more so of just that I've been watching a couple of videos to try to get over my aquaphobia a bit further. And so that like led me to be aware of like problems other generalities have besides me. So I was looking into, say, like people of color that have struggles that white people like me don't have, or troubles girls have that guys don't have. And it got me feeling really sad because I was like, why can't someone make a video about things I go through as opposed to me having to research everyone else's problems? So I've just been brainstorming like how to, I guess, raise awareness of my demographics struggles so that I don't feel like I'm all alone and that I don't really have anyone that understands me. So it would be pretty easy to just whip up a nice G-rated thing that just says like, hey, I feel like puking whenever I'm around the smell of eggs, or hey, my hair sometimes gets caught in my mouth when it's a windy day, but that feels so boring and trivial. Like, I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people of all ages, races, and genders that puke at the smell of eggs and have their hair caught in their mouth. So I guess I've just been trying to figure out the best way to approach this. Yeah, I think so. And it might even be a good way to reach out to people that might be thinking that they're alone. So, by raising awareness of my own struggles, that could help other people deal with theirs. So, what about yourself, Zoe? What's been going on with you lately? I know for me, I finally started taking swimming lessons. I'm going on my third lesson this Saturday. Um, I finally beat Persona 5 Strikers, so another 2021 game I can add to my list. And my birthday is next month. I don't really like to tell people how old I am unless they really know me, but I am really hoping that it can just be a nice, ordinary, quiet day where I hang out with people in person as opposed to the virtual party that we had last year, because now that at least where I live, COVID is becoming more, I guess, not really that big of a deal. We're allowed to see each other in person more, restaurants are opening up. And so society is relatively back to normal, apart from a few restrictions here and there. And we still have to wear masks indoors. From what I've been told, our governor is pretty stubborn. So we may be wearing masks a lot longer than most people, but at least we're making progress. At least we don't feel like we're in quarantine anymore. So yeah, that's my basic well-being. What about yours? And again, keep in mind that the walls are really thin, so if you have trouble hearing me, it's so that I don't disturb the other people in my household. Ah, good to know. You know, this headset is actually really, really good. Like I've had this for about, I'd like to say 2 years now, and I haven't heard a lot of people complaining about the audio quality as much as they used to. It's more or less that they have concerns about how soft my videos are, which eventually one of my subscribers offered a really neat solution. But before I get to that, one of my problems with my older videos was that my voice would be too loud and there would be too much white noise, or the whole video would be too quiet if they listened to it, say, on their phones or their own computers, because I have really sensitive ears. And so it's really hard for me to get earaches and to be like, oh my gosh, this is too loud. So a lot of times when I'm editing my videos in Movie Maker, I'm adjusting the volume based on my own ear tolerance. But apparently, what I consider normal volume is considered too quiet for everyone else. So one of my subscribers came along and said, well, Paul, what if you just turn down your computer's volume, but then turn your video's volume all the way up? So therefore it seems good enough to you and it'll actually be good enough for your subscribers. So probably if you're looking at the chronological timeline of my videos releases, probably ever since I did the one where I observed my own functions on the vlog, from then on was when I actually took that strategy into account. So I would be really curious, Zoe, if you have noticed a significant increase in volume quality. Because that's definitely one thing I don't want. I don't want my subscribers to feel like they have to get out their ear trumpets. But on the other hand, I also don't want to blast them. But on the other hand, my hearing is like, I would have to say probably about as perfect as you can get, maybe even beyond perfect. So that's definitely always a struggle I have when I'm editing. Sometimes even when I'm not editing, that's a struggle because I always have to figure out how loud to turn the TV so that I can actually hear the music from the video game. And what's loud for me is quiet for other people, and it's always fun having a movie gathering with my friends. So thankfully, I don't really watch movies anymore because of that. So Zoe, what was I gonna say? Um, I lost it. Let me get back to it in a minute. Oh, that's nice to hear. I'm really glad to hear that. Um, I think it's possible that maybe the subscriber that talked about my videos was watching them from a phone. And with a phone, you can only turn it up so much. Well, I don't know if I would know personally because I have one of these phones, but with the types of phones that actually can watch YouTube, I've noticed that like it only goes up to like 100 intervals. Whereas on a TV, like if I pull up YouTube on my TV, oh my gosh, that remote can go all the way up to like 500. So I think if people really can't hear my videos, they should just watch it on a TV if they have YouTube access on that. Which, speaking of TVs, did I tell you that ever since I moved to this new place, I was able to buy a 4K Ultra HD TV, which is kind of ironic because I don't actually watch TV all that much. I actually, really, the only times I watch TV are when my sister is bored and she's just like, "Hey, Paul, watch something with me." But we watch it off of Disney Plus, and I don't think Disney Plus streams in 4K. So a lot of times, I just think the video quality is fantastic, but I don't have the interest level to actually watch something that's suited for my TV. So I think it was just because when I went to Best Buy. Oh, yeah, that's pretty much what I use my TV to for as well, along with capturing footage for video games. I prefer to play video games like on my Switch in my room, like just sit on my bed and play it. But when I'm capturing footage, I have to use the TV. Also, when friends come over, they like to play video games on the TV because they don't want to be huddled around that tiny little Switch screen. My best friend, for example, he's gotten into the first Danganronpa game, and it's on his PC, but he has really bad neck problems. So looking at a laptop all the time like this is really hard for him. So he plugs it into the USB cable, and then that goes on the big screen TV, so we can see Monokuma in 4K, or at least somewhat close to 4K. But as far as me personally, I really don't play video games on the TV unless it's not on the Switch, like if I'm playing my Nintendo 64 or GameCube. But if it is on the Switch, I typically only use it for if friends are over and want to play Smash or when I'm capturing footage for a Switch game. So, for instance, Persona 5, I didn't end up, well, Persona 5 Strikers, I didn't end up playing that on the TV until I actually started capturing footage for it. But one thing I really like about my TV is that it it has a wide variety of options. So it makes my sister happy, it makes me happy, and so far no one's had any problems with it. So I really like its versatility. Oh, that's cool. Oh, Zoe, you have to tell me more about that because I have the Nintendo Switch Labo VR kit, and I've been told that that's like one of the worst VR experiences out there. And then when I went to NCYC, they had virtual reality for some like scenic things. And Catholic conferences aren't typically known for having the most mind-blowing technological capabilities. So I'd be really curious to know, like, have you actually tried it or do you just watch the TV version of it? Because I also heard they were making Myst on that thing, and my best friend, he's a huge fan of Myst. Me, I never got into it just because I found that the puzzles were too hard and abstract. But I don't know, maybe if my best friend and I ever work together. Oh, wow. I would love it if Beat Saber came to the Switch because that game looks so cool. Yeah, that happened to me when I played Captain Toad. There was a level where Captain Toad is riding on a railroad cart along a track, and it's based on the Fossil Falls level from Super Mario Odyssey. And I am normally not the type of person that gets motion sickness, but I did that time. Oh, I see. So, so you've both played in VR and you've also watched your roommate's account? Or do you mean like if you were playing on your account, you'd be able to set your own VR settings so that you don't get sick? Because the Switch doesn't let you do that, unfortunately. If you get sick, it's just like, oh, well, that's your loss. I tried playing Breath of the Wild in VR, and that was kind of a nightmare. But I did really appreciate how when Mario Odyssey had its VR update, I could actually look around all of these beautiful levels, and they actually give you the option to play it just in handheld, even if you don't have the Labo kit. But I think Nintendo's kind of abandoned that, so it's kind of just more so of a novelty when my friends come over. I can just say, hey, you want to play VR on the Switch? You can, but it's older games that use it. Yeah, I really hope Nintendo dabbles in VR a lot more because when I played the pre-made games that came bundled with the VR kit, I found that it was really incredible to like look backward to try to catch a baseball or to see the ball coming at me at the Mario Tennis minigame. I find that really hard to visualize. Like, how do you make it so that you're not as sick when you're playing VR? Like, it seems almost like an abstract concept, but I do think that's cool that they have the option for you to be able to keep track of your own settings. I definitely think more options is always better than no options. Like, I was playing Persona 5 Strikers the other day, and one of my biggest gripes with the entire game was the fact that it doesn't give you any options to adjust the sound. So you have to hear the voice acting and the music at preset volumes. And especially because I don't really like using Japanese voices, I played with the English voice acting the whole time. And sometimes the music would actually be louder than the actors' lines. And these are like some amazing top tier performers. And yet it feels like they're just whispering their lines when they really should be using a lot more inflection. But I also heard that because of the pandemic, they had to record their lines at home. So maybe Atlas just hadn't taken that into account or something. I don't know. But I definitely wish games were more like Smash Brothers, where I set it up so that whenever I play it on the TV, I have the sound turned all the way down and the music all the way up because I don't really like hearing the sound effects. I just like hearing the soundtrack. So Zoe, what's your favorite kind of music? Just curious. Yeah, my sister and I watched a movie like that where it was called Sunday School Musical, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Hey, Darnell. Oh my gosh, yes, it has been. It has been too long. So Zoe, Darnell was actually my classmate back when I was in school, and I didn't have too many classmates, so the fact that I have even just one actually is kind of incredible. So he's actually one of my oldest friends. So Darnell, I heard that you were recently checking out Disc Replay. How's that been for you? Because I went to Disc Replay recently, and their GameCube selection was almost barren, which is really a shame because I finally got my GameCube working again. And man, would I like to play some more GameCube games. I'm really hoping to play Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, Sonic Gems Collection. I forgot what the third one is, but I'm sure there's a couple I missed out on. I really like orchestra music. You may have noticed that, like, well, I actually don't do that many videos like that. I tend to gravitate towards live performances, so even if it can't be symphonic, I usually like it when it's performed with actual instruments as opposed to being used a synthesizer or MIDI or MIDI, as some people call it. So, for example, soundtracks like Super Mario Galaxy, Skyward Sword, Fire Emblem Three Houses, those are some of my absolute favorite soundtracks. And I would honestly, if I had my way, I would make it so that like every video game going forward would have a fully orchestrated soundtrack. But I know not everyone likes that. So I think the closest thing to that realization is if you download the game Evergate. Now, I know it's currently on the Switch. I'm not sure if it's on any other platforms, but that game is entirely orchestral. And I'm actually on speaking terms with the composer because he saw my. Hey, Mom. Just have to get some. Okay, I'll cover the webcam in case you're feeling camera shy.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Enjoy the rest of your night. My mom doesn't like showing up on the camera, so sorry about that. So yeah, what was I saying? Um, oh yeah, like I'm on speaking terms with the composer of Evergate because he saw my review, and I didn't even know that he was the composer at first. So that was super cool when he's just like, here's more of my work. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the name matches up. That's so cool. He also happens to have the same name of one of my old youth group leaders. And he vehemently claims that they're not the same person, which is hilarious because they have a very similar personality. Have you ever met any? Yeah, and that really hasn't happened with anyone else. I mean, I did get a brief message from the composer of A Short Hike, but we didn't really have a long conversation about it. I might one of these days talk to him again and just be like, "What other Switch games have you composed for?" But MR Miller, like, I followed him on Twitter, he followed me on Twitter, and I just gave him some ideas for how to make Evergate better, and I also told him when I get the money and the means, I will definitely be buying Evergate soundtrack. Hey there, Xavier. Have it I never figured out how to pronounce that, so I'm so sorry. I'm actually feeling a lot better right now. As I was telling Zoe earlier, the reason why I was upset earlier is because I'm trying to overcome aquaphobia. I know I made a video talking about overcoming it, but I don't ever want to get into relapses. So I've been trying to do some various coping mechanisms on mostly YouTube, and also just talking to my friends about like how to um, I guess, continue not having that fear, but it's led to me getting into like struggles that people of color, people of ethnicity have to deal with, struggles that girls have to deal with. And it just made me kind of feel left out because I was like, there's not really that many videos that talk about struggles that I go through. And so I've just been thinking, maybe I should be thinking about a way of making a video talking about my demographic struggles. So, like, what do guys go through? What do people with long hair go through? Because there's this video I was watching called, like, Problems Girls Have That Guys Would Never Understand. And I found that a lot of the things that they said relating to hair were stuff that I related to. Like, there was one option where the girl says, I'm just trying to wash my face, my hair gets in the way. It's like, yeah, I have that problem too, but I don't really wash my face that much. So I think it's more of like girls are more sensitive about how their face looks than guys are. I could be wrong, but that's what it seems like based on all those videos. Let's see what you're saying here, Darnell. It is really good that they have so many different disc replays because, like, um, sometimes. Oh, that is great, Zoe. I really appreciate it when people um, take a radical step in making their hair shorter. Unless if it's a guy. If a guy has long hair and he decides to shave it off, I'm just like, no, dude. But when girls do it, I love it. Just because it shows a level of independence and free will, besides just conforming to societal needs. I'm actually no longer in depression. Xavier, Javier, however you pronounce it. I used to be in depression. Now it's more so of just because I have a therapist and she did a depression screening on me. And she said I'm not technically clinically depressed, but she just said that because I'm adjusting to living in a new county for the first time in my life and I'm trying to like get a new job in this new county and get a new psychiatrist in this new county, she's like, anyone would be struggling right now. So she said, you are not alone. You're just going through a lot of changes. So it's really just a situational thing. I think give it a couple of weeks to a month. I should be back on my feet. And I'm an optimist. So a lot of times, even when I am sad, I usually get over it like after an hour or two if I just talk about it with closest friends. But I'm still glad that you took the time to check up on me. So, Zoe, what was your reasoning for shaving your head? Just curious. Hey there, Fuzzy Jedi. I'm actually not playing anything at the moment, but as far as what I'm playing when I'm not streaming, currently I have Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 that I'm renting from Gamefly. I just sent in Persona 5 Strikers, actually just put up a review of it. Then I've been playing Super Mario Bros. 35 almost every day because they're about to murder Mario in March 31st. And then I'm not really actively playing. I've been playing Super Smash Bros. Melee a lot because I want to re-review that game. Haven't gotten a chance too much lately just because I really wanted to get Persona 5 Strikers out of the way because 2021 is kind of a barren lineup so far. And I wanted to make sure, like, okay, I need to review at least one big profile game of this year. Um, that's an interesting way of looking at it for sure. I have actually never played Minecraft. The closest I've gotten would be playing as Steve and Alex in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. because I am not creative at all. I probably couldn't handle all that DIY stuff. Fortnite, I played a little bit, but it's updated so much that I don't think I can anymore. Just because if I installed all the updates on my Switch, I probably would run out of room on my SD card. Let's see. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your names right today, guys. Super Vega, let's see. I think I do actually. You commented on quite a bit of, I think it was my video game reviews that you commented quite a bit on, and we had like a nice ongoing conversation. And then weren't you also the one that wanted me to get Hades? Because if you were, Gamefly has a physical version coming out, so I can rent it without having to worry about the pricing. Yay. Well, that's good that you're comfortable, Zoe. I definitely think if we were ever to meet in person, I would consider that a very, how do I say this without coming across as a creep? I would probably think it's a really stylish look. But what I do play, as far as like when I'm not trying to get out a YouTube video, is I'm a big fan of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Like I still fairly regularly play that game, especially because the DLC is just pumping out like crazy. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is another one because the expansion pass is coming out. Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory, my very first Kingdom Hearts experience. I love Ace Attorney. I love Zero Escape. I'm more of a story over action type of guy. Like, I'm that guy where if they announce that no one, or like, we are not putting a story in this game because reasons, I always get really angry. Yeah, I still got to get around to Xenoblade 2, but at least I played Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And I tried out Mithra and Pirate and Smash, and the music is so good. Like Praetor Amalthus and Ship on a Stormy Sea. Like I would not be surprised if those were in a movie. So that alone might get me to check it out. Well, I don't actually have depression at the moment, Darnell, but if you ever need tips on how to overcome depression, I actually made a whole video called um, 4 words that got me out of depression. So if you ever need like my story of how I got back to normal, then just you feel free to watch that one. Yeah, I love Definitive Edition. I love how the worlds are so open and like you can take screenshots of everything and it just looks objectively beautiful. And the voice acting is really good. It's pretty rare that you get voice casts that are entirely British, so that was a nice audio surprise. Yeah, it really all depends on what Gamefly says, because I currently have a plan where I only rent 2 games at a time, and I'm trying to get the newer games out of the way first because I like making lists of the best games of the year. And inevitably, every single year, I end up not being able to get to all of them. So I want to try to play as many good 2021 games as possible so I can make another list. But I definitely will try to get Xenoblade 2 somewhere in there. I just have to think about finances if I ever decide to actually buy it or rent it. I've heard of the objective personality system, but I don't know it offhand. But by all means, if you'd like to talk about it, go for it. I love talking about personalities. Wait a minute, are you talking about the one that Shannon and I think they're called Objective Personalities, their YouTube channel, and they have like 152 different personalities? Because I tried listening to them talk, and I was honestly so confused. Yeah, yeah, that's the ones. Like one of them's an ENTJ, and I forgot what the other one was. And they're talking about stuff like the subconscious psyche and like demon FE, and I'm just like, say what? Who? Where? Wow. I got the numbers right. That is so cool. Zoe, make sure you either the next stream or in one of the comments on my videos, please let me know what type you end up being because I would really like to know and get into a conversation about that. Oh my gosh, really, Super Vega? That's terrible. Path of Radiance is like that too, because I went on GameStop's website to look for GameCube games, and I thought, surely GameStop is a reasonable outlet. And they had Sonic Gems collection for like $7. Path of Radiance, 150. It's like, well, yeah, Path of Radiance is a phenomenal game, and it's worth every penny. But 150? How are people supposed to play it if if it's that expensive? I think honestly, the best way to tell if you're ISFJ or not is to look at how good your memory is. Because generally speaking, the dominant introverted sensors are um, the ones with photographic memories. Yeah, at least I got Path of Radiance back when back when the GameCube was relevant, so that really helped my brother and me get into Fire Emblem. We actually have owned and played every Fire Emblem game that has come out in North America, even the really terrible Switch port of Shadow Dragon, which is so totally pointless because there was a Shadow Dragon remake on the DS, and I didn't really like that one either. But compared to the effort they did on the Switch, the DS version's a masterpiece. Again, it's still my least favorite Fire Emblem, but as far as how they did the port, it probably was handled as good as it could have been on the DS, besides maybe the music. So, as far as how do I word this? One thing that I've been thinking about regarding personalities and like how much I should talk about them, I've definitely been thinking like I think the Catholic faith definitely has a big say on what a stereotype should be. And I think that we as Catholics often get shafted into Catholic personalities based on misconceptions. I'm speaking in general terms here, just in case some of you don't know the same, like Myers Briggs objective personality that I do. So a lot of people say, oh, every single Catholic must be transphobic. And it's like, well, there's a difference between someone having a phobia, a fear, and a misunderstanding. So a phobia is an irrational fear that doesn't necessarily have an origin that kind of just sort of appears. You don't necessarily have had to have had a traumatic experience. Oftentimes, it doesn't make logical sense why you have the phobia. Like a lot of times, people that are afraid of open space, it's kind of just there. Like they never were abused or anything like that. They don't even know how to explain why they have it. And usually, you also can't control it. And even people that are super logically driven are afflicted by phobias. Now, fears are usually related to some kind of legitimately painful memory someone has had. So, if, for example, your mother died, then you might have a fear of losing someone. If you've fallen off a cliff, you might have a fear of heights. And then there's misunderstanding, which just means you don't have enough information. Oh my gosh, Kids Kingdom, Darnell, that brings back such good memories. Honestly, if I could, I'd go back there because I really loved the water surfing game that they used to have there. Oh, I don't know if I can summarize everything that's been going on since the 90s, but just to name a few things, started this YouTube channel. I've done some public speaking. I've dated two girls, neither of which worked out. But back when I was at Berger, I didn't want to date anyone, and I still thought girls were icky. I now have a niece and an upcoming niece on the way. Both of my brothers are married. Oh my gosh, we'll have to set up like a Facebook conversation or something because there's just way too much to say over the past years. Yeah, yeah, that is true. And I think especially with the Catholic Church, it's just that Catholicism likes to go back to the way things have always been, and they also like to look at the theological significance of everything. But oftentimes people don't know how to communicate that in a way that both makes sense but also doesn't hurt people. And to a certain extent, from my experience, it doesn't necessarily mean this is everyone, My experience with people on the LGBTQ plus 6 spectrum is that they tend to be okay if you don't know anything about their spectrum. They'll be happy with catching you up, being like, well, this is what it means to be bisexual. This is what it means to be gay. But then when you directly challenge them and say, like, now, are you sure that's what God intended? And do you think maybe you might have to just take control of your urges instead of always jumping at them every opportunity? Then they get super angry and say you're prejudiced and bigoted and terrible. And it's just like, um, all through the 90s and before that, it wasn't even heard of that a woman was a man. Like, how are you suddenly expecting people to just accept this as a norm? Like, even if you want to take something that's not related to sex, like phones, for example. Oh, Lizzie's answer is yes. I actually didn't know that she was a Catholic until I watched her video about modest swimwear. So when I first watched that, I was like, oh, well, she could have mentioned that sooner because then I would have watched her even more. Because I watched her a little bit, but I think she was still Protestant at the time. And I was like, it sounds like she's just stating a lot of her own opinions. But once she made her How to Be Modest While Swimming video, then she's like, this is what Pope Benedict has said. Or was it Pope? One of the popes. She said, like, here's an encyclical about modesty from the Pope. And I'm just like, you're actually quoting sources. But yeah, getting back to like even just something like phones. So obviously, pretty much everyone nowadays has a cell phone. My dad doesn't. To this day, if I were to hand him a phone, he'd be like, what's this button do? Well, Paul, can you dial my wife's number so I can talk to her? It's just like, it's common knowledge for me because everyone has phones. My dad grew up in an era where cell phones were unheard of. So for him, it's a foreign concept that seems like it's pushed upon him just because it's the traditional thing to do. So, in the same way, I think people that are radically different in terms of gender expression should give, I guess, the heterosexual people a chance to learn and get used to all of this. Just because a lot of us who are older, it didn't even cross our minds that such a thing was possible. So you got to kind of give us some slack. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because I didn't mean to step on any toes. I just wanted to give like an example of how there's a lot of unreasonable standards to catch up. Yeah, that is true. Like, I'm actually the same way. Like this phone, for example. I know you were probably paying attention, Zoe, but this is a flip phone, and not a whole lot of people have flip phones nowadays. I mean, I don't even have that involved of a background. But I don't see the point of upgrading for the sake of upgrading. Now, lately, agreed, Zoe, especially if you're me. Lately, I've loosened up a little bit, at least with video games, because, like, now that I actively try to review newer games when they come out, I do think that whatever Nintendo system is after the Switch, I'll want to try to get it at launch day just because I don't want to be that YouTuber who's still reviewing Wii U games when the Switch is already a year out. Oh my gosh, Rapid River. I have not heard that name in so long. Oh my gosh, now I want to play that again. Oh my gosh. Yep. And I also remember Brittany and we'd try to like pull each other down the slides. Oh my gosh, Kids Kingdom was so much fun. Darnell, if you know of Kids Kingdoms that are still around, I would love to tell my brother about it so that he can take his daughter there. Well, it's the only analogy I really can think of. But at least a good analogy is better than a bad one. Hello, gosh, I'm gonna need a dictionary. Frater Vincentius. Um, we're talking about all sorts of things because we've got Darnell here, who's my classmate back when I was in. We didn't really have grades back then, we I think we were like 8 or 9 when we were in school. And so we've been catching up on a place called Kids Kingdom, which was like the playground that, or not, an indoor playground that we went to when we were kids. And then Zoe here, she and I are talking about hairstyles and like how come Catholics get portrayed as LGBT haters when I think it's really just they're expected to understand something that wasn't even heard of until just recently. And then Super Vega was talking about Xenoblade 2, so we've talked about all sorts of things. How have you been lately? By the way, I don't know if I've said this, so assuming most of you are still watching, um, I don't know how to make this sound super sincere, so try to take it with a grain of salt, but I really thank you guys a lot, even for just saying hello on my streams. Like, I don't really like having a lot of people on streams just because I feel like people are inevitably going to get ignored. Like, because I'll be trying to focus on one person's sentence and then another answer will come and I'll be like, I don't want to ignore anyone. But this number right here, it currently says 6 people are watching. This is a good number. And you guys are actually loyal people. And that makes more of a difference to me than having 1,000 subscribers. Because what matters to me is having, I guess, the ability to have a good conversation with someone. And when people have, like, say, tens of thousands of subscribers, they have to literally ignore their comments feed because, hey, if they tried to write to everyone, that would take them all day. I don't ever want to get to that point. So having subscribers in the triple digits, it works perfectly for a regular old country nobody like me. Now, I know I say a country nobody, even though I have a Midwestern accent. And that's because, yes, I do live in the Midwest, but where I live currently is very countrified compared to where I used to live, which had a lot of cities. So, within just 5 minutes of my house is a lake that's surrounded by trees. Like back in my old house, you would have to walk for like 2 hours to get to the nearest lake. Actually, I think you'd probably have to take a car. But now, if I ever want to go swimming at the lake, I can just say to my friends, like, hey, it's just 3 blocks away. And most of my friends are really good walkers, so that totally works out. So, just as a heads up, guys, and let me put this in chat just in case someone comes in late. So, I may have to end the stream abruptly without being able to say goodbye to you guys. So, just don't take it as me being rude. Just take it as there are other people in this household, and I don't want to completely take over their living space. Why, thank you. Well, this is actually a laptop that I'm recording on, so it's quite a bit different than typing on a regular keyboard. But I think I've gotten so used to it that a lot of times when I go to my friend Nick's house and he gives me the option to use a regular old computer mouse, I end up forgetting that it's there. I just use his laptop pad because I've gotten so used to moving my finger to move the mouse cursor. Well, Zoe, that's really cool that you used to live by a lake. I don't usually like asking people where they live, but I do hope that if you stick around my channel enough and God willing, we end up becoming friends, I do hope you'll come visit my place sometime because it really feels like it's one of those places that you would only go on during retreats or during a celebrity vacation, and yet I live there. And it's just so cozy and retire-esque, I would say. because eventually I'm going to inherit this house. And if I don't end up ever having a girlfriend, I honestly wouldn't be very upset if I end up staying in this house the rest of my life. Honestly, I'm the type of guy where I don't feel the need to constantly evolve. I'm more or less happy with just living my life day after day. So I know some people are like, I know some people are, how do I word this? Like some people get to the point where they'll say, I'm 26 years old and I need a girlfriend. If I'm 50 and I still don't have a girlfriend, I'm probably going to be totally fine with it. Just because I don't want to rush into something for the sake of rushing into it. I want to do what works and also what God says. Yeah, that is a shame. But hey, I've had really incredible reunions with people that I've met on mission trips that I thought I would never see again and just casually bumped into them at a conference of 23,000 people. So anything is possible. Oh, do you mean Facebook chat, Darnell? Yeah, I love this house so much. Zoe, I don't know if you saw my videos back when I was living in my previous house, but I actually have a bedroom now, which is such a luxury because I used to either sleep on my futon or on the floor because I didn't really like my bunk bed for many, many reasons. Mostly just because it was too high up and my room got very hot. Now I have an actual bed and a fan in my room on the ceiling as opposed to having to get this big giant square fan and have it blowing on me the whole time. And my room actually has a closet and shelves and it feels like an actual bedroom, which is great because I've sort of had to make do with DIY type basement and garage projects. And I'm glad that this feels like a proper house. We also have a carpeted basement, and I already told you about the 4K TV, but we also have an air hockey table and a ping pong table. Admittedly, those two were both my dad's ideas because well, neither of us are particularly the partying type, but if I had to pick which one of us prefers it over the two, it would definitely be him. Because he kept saying, like, oh, I want the space to be the gathering space. Whereas I was just like, I'd really just like my own TV. But people that are more, I guess, need physical things to do as opposed to just sitting and talking, I think that would be a great compromise for those kinds of people. Because I'm the type of guy where if you were to say, hey, Paul, let's hang out, and you couldn't think of anything to do, I would just say, okay, well, let's just, I don't know, go for a walk, sit down, and just talk. Like, I'd be fine by that. But I know plenty of people wouldn't. They'd be like, I'm bored, let's do something. I honestly have seen a lot of my friends' apartments, and they look so amazing. But I can definitely see where if you're, how do I word this? Some apartments are made better than others. Like a former friend of mine, Brian, had an apartment that I think people actually smoked in the building. There wasn't really a whole lot of carpeting. And it just felt like the cheapest version possible. I was like, yeah, I can see why he hated that place. But then my friend Sarah had an apartment that was so cozy that I almost didn't know that it was an apartment had she not told me ahead of time. You would love where I live, Zoe. Like, there are so many hiking trails that I haven't even been to all of them. But to be fair, I've also only just moved here in October, and it's only just getting warm enough where we can actually take walks without freezing cold. But like this today, mom was just like, hey, guess what, Paul? I just discovered 3 more trails. And I'm like, I just discovered that that there's anything in this place. And I just think it's really fortunate how God made things work out because Um, my dad was trying so hard to find someone to buy our old place. And in kind of a sporadic move of desperation, I just blurted out when I was hanging out with my best friend. I just said, "Hey, Andy, why don't you just buy our house?" And he said, "Okay." So now my best friend lives in my old house. And my dad couldn't be happier with that because he's like, "Andy, you're practically a second son to me." Technically a fourth, because there's me, my two younger brothers, and my younger sister. So make of that what you will. Yeah, thank you, Zoe. It was give or take about a 5-year journey, not even exaggerating. So we've definitely been in quite a bit of an adjustment period ever since 2015. Because my grandma passed away relatively suddenly in 2014, and due to some complicated legal issues, we were kind of forced to move into her house after she died. But then we were told, like, this place is only temporary from day one. And they were just like, give yourselves 3 years and then find a new place. And it ended up taking us 5. So we definitely had a lot of pressure on us for a long time. Uh, I remember all of those people, Darnell. Like, I remember going to Marsha's. She had a special retirement party, and I got special permission to go, and I was like the only kid at an all adults party. Because you and I were like really something else in our class. Because didn't you say that Colleen like had a picture of you and me, and she didn't really have pictures of any of the other students? Because we were just exemplary examples in her class. One of my favorite things about being in Colleen's class was we had that little clubhouse in the back, and we would always like hang out there with all the beanie chairs, whatever they're called. And I also remember that we would just go across the room into Carol's classroom to play on the Nintendo 64. Oh my gosh, those were such good days. A lot of people talk about how much they hated school, but man, me and Darnell, we were practically in seventh heaven back in school. They treated us like celebrities. And honestly, if I had a chance to go back to school there, I probably would take it because it was just so nice to be respected. And it was so nice to be given an opportunity to feel like I actually fit in. Because ever since leaving school, I've always felt like I was an outcast wherever I go. Even when I'm around other guys, I've always felt like an outcast. But at Berger, we all felt like we were special. And I think that led to me being okay with being special. But every now and then, I would really appreciate it if I could just go into a group of people, give everyone a high five, and blend in. But alas, I don't think that's going to be possible. But because I'm an optimist, I just want to say the fact that I got to do that at Berger at all meant the world to me. And so I'm just really glad that I had that opportunity to feel like I was part of the crowd. And again, I'm not really the type of guy that strives to completely fit in with everyone. I'm generally more of a look up objective reasoning type of person, but every now and then it's nice. Um, I think artificial intelligence has a lot of potential, but I think it has a lot of potential to do damage if it's not properly programmed. Because I feel like when I'm playing games like Super Smash Bros. Melee, it is impossible to get the computer opponents into a grab. And I think that's just very faulty AI because it doesn't feel like it could be a human playing as the character. And I think the best types of AI are the ones where you forget that it's a robot. I wouldn't mind talking to an AI if we go into a future where, say, the waitresses at the restaurants take our orders as robots, I think I'd be okay with that. But I think I'd be more okay if it was capable of having conversation. Because if there's one thing I cannot stand for the life of me, it's automated phone calls. Because, like, I just want to talk to a person on the line, and I go and I try to say something, and they're just like, press one to hear this option, press two to hear this option. I'm just like, just give me a person already. So I think an AI that is only capable of automated processes, if that's the word, I'm not going to like too much. But an AI that is capable of talking would be cool. Oh, wow. That's really cool, Zoe. I don't know if I'd ever be able to do that because this phone doesn't really have apps. But I would definitely be very curious if there was a way to hook up orchestra pieces based on your heart rate. I have never heard of that type of AI, Frater Vincentius. If you could share what that is, that would be much appreciated. Oh, well, that's cool. If it's not too costly, I could consider that, yeah. Because I'm currently going through a bit of an adjustment period, and finances have been a bit complicated. So I'm really trying not to spend my money on too much that's outlandish, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I'm also prioritizing what I really need. So, for instance, the swimming pool near my house only costs $2 for residents. So it's like, I'm pretty sure $2 a week is not going to drain my bank account that much. But if I were to say buy something that's $20, that might be a bit much for now. But it looks like I'm at the very least it looks like at the very least I'm gonna be getting some kind of income relatively soon. I actually never had a Game Boy Color, Darnell. I never actually even owned my own handheld system until I think it was 2006 or 2007 when I got my DS. So I never actually owned a Game Boy. I think my best friend let me borrow his, but I never ended up playing it because there weren't too many games I liked on it. I now have a 3DS that's oh wait, I just gave that to my best friend too. Endel X Grimes. Huh. Is it orchestra music, Zoe? Because I frankly, I'm not really interested in any other genre of just listening to it for the sake of listening to it. If it were maybe complementing something, like if someone's doing a demonstration video that has synth music, I might be okay with it. But if you're just like, Paul, listen to this song, and it's not orchestral, I'm going to be like, not interested. Oh, well, ambient music is pretty nice. I do tend to like video games where they go for what's called the minimalistic soundscape approach. Like Breath of the Wild doesn't have a whole lot of music. Mostly it lets the sound of the environment take over. And my mother, who doesn't play video games at all, could point out which types of birds were making the bird calls when I was walking through a forest. So I think games like that, where the environment is the music, is a good alternative to live performances. And when Breath of the Wild did have music, it was usually very soft, ambient piano pieces that would just give you a hint that there was something nearby, but it wouldn't be this grand, sweeping song like it would be in games like Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword. But Zoe, I think even if you're not much of a gamer, I think if you looked up some of the pieces in Breath of the Wild, you would probably like most of them. Now, there are a couple of heavy hitting pieces, but most of them are just like very chill, relaxed, slow piano pieces that are supposed to invoke like just wandering around a wilderness. I would say if Deathly Hallows was actually happy, I would imagine that would be the soundtrack they would use. Hmm. Huh. sounds so cool. I would love to see that kind of AI. Huh. That's really cool. I would really like to see what society is capable of. Huh. Well, that would be fun if I were to ever do that, because I used to write a lot of Facebook notes until Facebook took them down. And I'd love to see if like people would mix up my own writing versus an AI's writing. Also, fun fact, you guys, I've actually only written of all the video games that I've reviewed, I've actually only written 2 scripts, and I think I reviewed 260 different video games, and the only 2 where I wrote a script were for Super Mario Party and New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and there were reasons for both of those having scripts. For New Super Mario Bros. Wii, it was because I was making fun of how New Super Mario Bros. U wasn't that different. And so what I did was I took my script from my New Super Mario Bros. U review, wrote that down, and then edited it to make it accommodate um, the fact that Mario Wii was on the Wii, and just pretended like I was reading from the same script to make fun of the lack of innovation in the series. But as is typical me fashion, I ad-libbed in there every now and then. And then Super Mario Party, I actually only wrote part of a script because that was my first collaboration video. So I had Nekotendo Gaming, back then she was Miss Nekotendo, and the Yellow Kazoo, two of my favorite YouTubers. Um, and they had lines, and then I also had responses to what they said and what I was going to say to them, because we were making a skit about making fun of how hard it is to get people to play Mario Party together, and also how tough it is to get Switch Online without paying for it. So I really prefer the unscripted approach. I definitely don't want to go back to a script, but if I ever do, it'll be for a very specific reason or to prove a point, not because I need it. If you guys will excuse me for a moment, I need to take a break. So be right back. Feel free to talk to each other in the chat. I won't be too long, but I'll be right back. Alrighty. Alrighty. Welcome back, my loyal audience. So, how many of you are still here? Because it says we've got 5 viewers. I might be ending pretty soon anyway, just because this is how much water I have left, and my voice might be getting a little bit shot, but I definitely want to give people that come late a chance to possibly say hi. So I'll persevere for a little bit longer, but just saying, like, I might not necessarily be able to stay up for another hour. Also, another thing I really appreciate about you guys is the fact that I still haven't figured out how to stream games that I'm playing. So I really appreciate the fact that you guys, how do I word this? I really appreciate the fact that you guys don't get tired of seeing my mug. Because I personally think I look great, but I know that I'm not the most conventionally attractive guy in the world. So it means a lot that you can put up with me. That would be nice, Zoe. I do appreciate how loyal you've been, honestly. Oh, and in case you forgot, I do hope you'll tell me what Dave and Shannon have to say. Yeah. Oh, Banjo-Kazooie. I wasn't scared of the witch. That was a game that I had ever since. Well, I actually had Banjo-Kazooie before. No, wait a minute. Yeah, I owned Banjo-Kazooie before we gave it to Berger. And it wasn't that I was scared of her, it was that I didn't know how to open the final note door to get to the pot that launches you to the top. I've since beaten Banjo-Kazooie like 3 times, and it's a really easy game until you get to the end game. Then all of a sudden it just pulls a huge difficulty spike on you, which is probably my biggest problem about Banjo-Kazooie overall. Okay, well, that seems reasonable. Well, my birthday is on April 20th, so that'll definitely be nice to that'll be a nice birthday present. Oh, well, hello, Anthony. I'm not too good at remembering faces, so I'm really glad that you clarified, because I can't say I know what the Marine City Choir Clinic is, but Rainbow, that I definitely do remember. I mean, I'm wearing the T-shirt, so obviously I remember it. Yeah, yeah. It was the Rainbow Youth Conference, because there's also a Rainbow Gay Conference, not to be confused. So, yeah, glad to see you again. You'll have to remind me how we met, because again, faces and me don't do well together. Like, I ended up asking my swim teacher if we had met before the other day. Um, I prefer not telling my exact age to most people on YouTube unless I really know them. But that I'm let's just say that I'm older than 18 and leave it at that for now. And the hint the other hint that I've given my loyal subscribers is I was old enough to play Twilight Princess on the GameCube on launch day, which was back in December of 2006. So there's your other clue. Unfortunately, I don't actually have Instagram, so you'll have to, um, probably you'll have to stick with either YouTube or Twitter, 'cause, YouTube, everything is public, and Twitter, I mean, I don't particularly like Twitter, but at the very least, it lets me keep in touch with my fans and tell them, like, these are the videos I'm planning, this is my mindset, so that they're aware that they have the ability to question what kind of stuff is on my channel if they're too afraid of giving content or comments. And I also think that, back when the COPPA controversy was a big thing, I was afraid that they were going to take down my fans' abilities to comment. So I started up a Twitter account so that people could comment there instead of my videos. So yeah, I don't have an Instagram. I'm sorry about that. Even if I did, I don't think it seems like my kind of thing, just because from what I've heard, it sounds like a lot of people um, use it mainly for photos, and I don't take very many photos. I think the last time I took a photo was about almost 2 years ago, I think. So, Anthony, my Twitter is, I believe it's Catholic Nin One, or just look up Catholic Gaming Nerd. It's the same name as my YouTube channel. Lightning Farron, she's another YouTuber. She follows me, so you could always look on her Twitter as well. MR Miller, he's the composer of Evergate. He follows me. Ball and Chain follows me. So those are a couple of famous names that you can look for. Anthony, remind me, what rainbow did we meet each other on? Because I went to the first rainbow I went to is in 2007. So from 2007 to 2009, I went as a participant, and then from 2011 to 2020, I only missed one conference in chaperoning capacity. Well, I missed the one in 2010 on purpose because that was the requirement for being a leader, was you couldn't just go right back. But then 2011 to 2020, I think the only one I missed was 2018 or 2019, just because there weren't enough people in our youth group to need that many chaperones. YouTube might block your comment if you put an article, just a fair warning, Frauter. So just know that it's not me. I'm not purposely blocking anything, but YouTube might have it automatically blocked just because um, I set it so that questionable things are held for review, and YouTube just automatically thinks anything with a link in it is held for review. So just FYI, that if I don't see it right away, that's why. Because I think my favorite rainbow, I have two particular favorite conferences. The first one, assuming you're still there, Anthony, because man, I could talk about rainbow all day. My first favorite, well, actually, they're kind of tied now that I think about it. So the one in 2016 was one of my two favorites because that's the one that got me out of depression. And then the one in 2020 was really great because one, that was the last one ever because they shut the conference down after that due to lack of funds from the pandemic. Two, that's when I got to give the speech in the module about overcoming depression and like surviving with other conditions. And I remember I hadn't even signed up to do any kind of speech. That was all almost entirely on the spot. Like I what I had signed up for module duty. I had wanted to do that every year since Joanna started taking over Night Watch. And so, yeah, that's true. But if you do decide to post it in one of my comments, I'll see that it's from you in my held for review section, and I can look at it after the stream. But yeah, so the one in 2020, I did sign up to be module moderator. Well, module checkup would be the more proper term. I said, okay, this looks like a good module. I'll do it. But it turns out I chose the wrong one because the title was, I think it was like dealing with mental health. So I said, "Oh, that's cool," because I love talking about the autism spectrum and I love talking about um, those kinds of details. But it turns out that autism isn't considered mental health, it's considered a social neurological disorder. So it turned out that I was in a module full of people dealing with stuff like depression and sadness and bipolar. And I'm just like, okay, that was a big mistake. But I said to the keynote, like, hey, guess what? I'm your adult that's in charge of helping you out. So if you need any assistance, please feel free to let me know. And then it was about 10 minutes before the module was about to end. She said, hey, Paul, would you mind giving a presentation to the teenagers? So with about 3 minutes worth of preparation time, I just stood up and like, hey guys, here's my testimony. And no one bothered sending me a video, which makes me very sad because I gave them express permission to get out their phones at that time and no one bothered sending me a clip. But probably also because I didn't really I probably didn't really advertise my contact information, so that's probably why. Um, actually, that is actually true, Zoe. That's actually how Darnell and I know each other, is that we went to school for people on the spectrum. So Darnell's also on the spectrum too, and honestly, our diagnosis is pretty mild. Really, it's just we sometimes say stupid stuff when we converse with people, and sometimes have trouble with knowing what's appropriate and what isn't. But apart from that, it's really hard for people to tell. So let me see your comment here, Darnell. An uncle of six. Dang, your siblings have been busy. Can't say I know what a 4.0 means. Wow. Huh. Good job. Well, it's good to know that you've been keeping busy. But that's okay. Now I'm curious, Zoe, because I didn't get enough information to pick up that you were on the spectrum because you really kind of only comment on these streams, and so I don't really see Asperger's patterns. So I would really love to hear like how your own journey has been going and like where we're similar, where we're different, and all that kind of stuff. Because I've given public speeches on the spectrum as well. And that was also part of the speech I gave at the conference was like my journey with going through basically going my whole life feeling misunderstood. Except at Berger. That was paradise. Berger was so much of a paradise that when I talked to any other kid that went to any other school, they'd be moaning and groaning about, oh man, I hate school. And I'd be like, I love school. Why don't we go on weekends? That's how well they treated us. Why, thank you, Zoe. I'm glad to hear that. Um, I would say that's a yes or a no regarding communication. I would say if we have Asperger's syndrome, it's definitely easier. But the thing about Berger was that it was a school for people with autism in general. And when I first joined Berger, obviously they didn't have a good enough grasp on my personality. So they put me in with a group of kids that couldn't talk at all. And me, I'm saying full sentences, just being like, hi, teacher, how's it going? And they're just like, dude, you can actually talk. We need to put you in a classroom with the higher functioning folks. So I would say it's kind of hard for me to talk to someone on the lower functioning level, but on the higher functioning level, it feels like we have like a split brain or something. Well, you do a pretty good job communicating with me, so you must have clearly had some life experience that taught you. Now, I never heard of autism having levels. I've always heard it divided into low functioning, middle functioning, and high functioning. And I've always been on the high functioning scale. Oh, thanks for getting back, Anthony. If by last year you mean 2020, were you in my module that I did the presentation for? Because I remember it was mostly girls there, but it wasn't entirely girls. Oh, I see. So, yeah, I'm not too great at remembering who's from which parish, but I do remember that. Trying to think, 2020 was a weird year for going to Rainbow because I had two girls. Icebreaker. Oh, I remember now. Weren't we talking about like passing out the book? And you were like, hey, are you also this and that? And I was checking off your book. Oh, the icebreakers are pretty funny. Hey there, JP. Welcome back. Oh man, it's been too long. So, man, JP, this is really good timing that you showed up because we were just talking about how, because Anthony and I were just talking about how we saw each other at a conference. You and I met on a mission trip. And then Darnell, who's also in the chat, we met at school. So I've got all these people that have met me at really special places coming in. So yay for epic reunions, guys. Don't give up on the concept. Well, if by level one you mean high functioning autism, I would say people with Asperger's syndrome do need some support. Oh my gosh. Fear Industries too? This is gonna turn into like one of those like 50-year Little House on the Prairie reunion types of things at this rate. How are you both doing? Gosh. This is incredible. This may be my favorite stream ever with just how many familiar people are showing up. Yeah, they changed it a lot because um, back when I was diagnosed, they hardly knew what they were talking about. So I think, thank you. Yes, I did make a video about that recently. Um, Actually, you guys would be really excited to hear what one of my most recent projects was. I was looking back on that mission trip and oh, that's so cool, Anthony. Well, I'm really glad that we could reunite like this. Honestly, that's something that I wish more people at Rainbow would do, but they usually forget about me. So I'm really glad that someone remembered me because, man, after all the people that I meet, I do end up kind of fading into obscurity. So that is really, really great. But yeah, JP and Furum, like you guys would be really happy about what I just did. I took a look at a lot of the vlogging that I did, which apparently my sister says I'm pronouncing it wrong, that I did at Catholic Heart in 2018, and I was just observing how I was reacting and talking about the behind the scenes of everything that I said on camera versus what was actually happening. Because a lot of times when you have a camera pointed at you don't always say things 100% accurately. So I was like, yeah, I forgot to mention this was happening in the background. And I just wanted to hurry it up because the program was about to start. And I think I'm actually going to make a separate video in the near future where I talk about how great that mission trip was and how it like literally changed my life. Oh my gosh, that was such an amazing trip. Um, wait a minute. Wait. Anthony, am I reading you right? You said you felt called to check in and say hi? Does that mean like God himself put it on your heart or mind or whatever you call it? Because that would be really cool if that was the case. Because that would mean that God is essentially saying, hey, this isn't just some random Joe at the conference. You hear? This is the big deal. Man, I'm going to miss Rainbow. That was I don't know if you were listening earlier, Anthony, but Rainbow 2016 actually got me out of depression. So I've had sort of this like very strong affinity to that conference ever since. I mean, I've only missed two conferences from 2007 to 2020. So that should tell you how dedicated I am to serving the people in need. Whew. Well, I'm almost out of water, so I might be hanging in there just a little bit longer. But Furim, I was wondering, what kind of videos would you like to see me make in the future? Because I know you keep saying long live Paulism, and that makes me really happy to hear that. But what videos would you consider to be more Paulistic than others? Like, are there certain videos where you're just like, he's losing his touch, he's not being enough polished, he needs to be better. Like, just curious if that's something that you would be interested in. JP, are there any videos that you feel like I haven't been making enough of? Because you two are some of my most loyal subscribers ever. Paulism is more or less my unique way of speaking and presenting information that really no one else can do. Like, for example, there are plenty of YouTubers that make tier lists of like a tier list of the ultimate Disney movies, the best games ever, but I sort of have this I sort of I sort of have this unique way of presenting my ideas that's more or less not really possible to recreate unless you're legitimately trying to imitate me as a person. Well, thank you, Anthony. Yes, it did. I'm actually painfully shy when I go to those conferences, so I definitely. Oh, hold that thought, guys. I just got a comment from Martha here. Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Martha. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you subbed. It actually means more to me when people are loyal as opposed to simply subbing. So if you stick around and talk and comment, that would mean a lot to me. But I'm really glad to see that. I'm really glad to see that you approved of how I turned out. So let's see, where are we? Catholic game reviews. I'm actually about to make one in the next few days. I'm gonna do a Catholic review on Persona 5 Strikers. Theology. mm, I could do that, but you'd have to be specific about what you wanted in theology, just because the early days of my channel, like some of my earliest videos back when in like 2016 were all about theology. And that's the main reason why I had trouble going back to that style is because I was like, man, I'm pretty sure I've covered just about everything. But if I'm missing some topics, feel free to let me in. True belief. I'm gonna have to do some thinking about that one, but this year of 2021, I actually made a New Year's resolution where I said that I was going to try harder to make Catholic content. It's been a bit harder than I thought, just because with this new house, I have more restrictions on filming. So sometimes I'll do like what you saw with the Paulism for Life video. I will do like silent videos where I will do like text narration if I can't film it. So I'll definitely keep your thoughts in mind. Um, I actually have reviewed all of the Smash Brothers games, Darnell. It's because I've owned all of them at one point. Just browse through my channel and you'll find a review of every single one of them. I actually don't really do devotions just because they're not required for a Catholic life. But if I had to pick one, I would probably say the St. Joseph's Novena. Specifically the one that says like, "O Saint Joseph, whose protection is so great, so strong, so prompt before the throne of God, I place in you all my interests and desires." That one. That's the one. You guys are not going to believe me when you hear this. You're probably going to think I'm lying or making stuff up for dramatic effect, but I actually went on a mission trip in 2015. That part's the true story, but how the St. Joseph's Novena comes into it is where you're going to think this is probably unbelievable. So I went on a mission trip in 2015 and I hated it. There were parts of it that were great, such as the fact that there was a guy who believed in Greek mythology who wasn't a very nice guy, and then he and then he and then he gave me a hug at the end of the trip, which was very out of character for him. He was the touchy-feely, don't use anything but logic type of guy. He gave me a hug and he said, "I want to come back." there was a girl that was like afraid of dying, and then she wasn't after I talked to her. And so it was Friday night, and we were about to leave the camp. And as I'm walking out of the audience area, don't worry, I'll get to you guys eventually. I just want to tell this fun story first. As we were walking out of the program area, these girls come like, Paul, 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 can you please come back on mission trip? And I said, oh my gosh, this mission trip is so terrible. I think I'm done with CHWC. And then I said super sarcastically, if you really if you really want me to come back, just pray the St. Joseph's Novena. And at the time, I thought, oh, they're just teenagers. Teenagers never take anything you say seriously. Well, fast forward to about a year later in 2016. I think it was May 2016. I was at the park and I was just minding my own business. And all of a sudden, what do I hear but, hey, Paul, there's a girl that needs your help and you have to go on mission trip to help her. I sighed. I said, really? You're telling me they actually prayed the St. Joseph's Novena? And I went on that mission trip, and that ended up helping my sister, who didn't go on the mission trip. So God was being very indirect there by saying, there's a girl you need to help. But he didn't say it was a girl on the mission trip, but rather, from what I learned on that mission trip, it helped my sister. A Sprite can, huh? Hey, that sounds cool. I'd love to see that Twitter picture. You know, to tell you the truth, Zoe, I actually have been wanting to live stream a lot more. It's just I don't usually have the opportunity. So if I have more opportunities, I will definitely try to do that. That was another one of my New Year's resolutions, actually. Chaplet of Divine Mercy, it's a little bit repetitive for my tastes, but I don't mind if it's done every now and then, but having to do it every day, maybe if I'm feeling particularly penitential, I'll think about it. Oh, to answer your question, Darnell, I have very specific tastes in gaming, and that's why I tend to go for what makes me happy as a gamer. Now, that doesn't mean I won't take requests, because there have been plenty of times where someone will say, Paul, can you review this game? And then I will as a result of their suggestion. But they typically have to be a game that I'm already somewhat interested in to begin with. Like if someone said, Paul, can you review Doom 64? I'll be like, that's a shooter. And I'm terrible at shooters. But if someone were to say something like, hey, Paul, can you review something like Hades? Which actually did happen the last time I did a live stream. And I said, well, I'm not really a big fan of roguelikes. But I have played Cadence of Hyrule, which is a light roguelike. So I just said, okay, well, if it ever comes to gameplay, I'll rent it. And it's in my queue. So we'll see what happens. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here because I feel like I talked a lot. Okay, I caught up with everyone. That's good to hear. That is true. Yes, my best friend just beat Earthbound, and that is true. You do win by praying. I don't really like Earthbound, to be honest. I've never played it myself, but I watched my best friend play through the first hour, and I liked the sense of humor. I liked the setting. I didn't like the battles. I thought the trippy background was too annoying on my eyes. I thought the music was kind of a bit iffy. And I also didn't like how you couldn't see your party members and there wasn't really any animation in the battles. And it felt like there was a lot that had to do with luck, which is why I don't really like Dragon Quest games. So, what my compromise is regarding Earthbound is that I do really like Undertale. So, I'm asking my best friend to write a script for an Earthbound review because he actually did play it. And then he's going to send it to me, and I'm just going to ad lib parts where um, I feel like my style would shine better. So Earthbound is on the way. So let me see if I can remember everything you guys want me to do. Because again, I can promise I can try, but I can't promise I can 100% get to everything right away. I'll try to do more live streams for you, Zoe. I'll try to do. I can't really do videos on devotions just because I don't pray them enough, but I can compromise for you, Martha, and I can maybe talk about why that St. Joseph's Novena actually helped me do two different miraculous occurrences in my life. Catholic game reviews, Persona 5 is on the way, or Persona 5 Strikers is on the way. I may do AI the Somnium Files, but it depends on if there's a demo on the eShop so I can get some more footage. Theology depends on what I haven't already done in the early days of my channel. The True Belief, I've been thinking about that for a while, and it might have to be a perspective on what the Catholic Church actually believes as opposed to what people think it believes. Why, thank you. Yeah, it really is a no-fails novena because the other story of where it had a miraculous occurrence was that same mission trip that I hated in 2015, our group had to take a bus because there were 33 of us, which is a lot by our group standards. To put it into perspective, my very first mission trip that I went on, there were only, I think, 11 of us. So we tripled in number. So we couldn't just rent vans, we had to rent a whole bus. But we didn't have proper funds because most of us were too nervous to be able to ask people to give us donations. So I ended up praying the St. Joseph's Novena for about, I think, 3 weeks before the trip actually started. And it was, I believe it was a week before the trip, our leader finally sent us an email. Our youth group leader sent us an email saying somehow the parish pitched in with the rest of the money so we can go on the bus. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I almost thought that retreat would be, that mission trip would be canceled. I'm also thinking I might make a video about that entire mission trip and just talk about like how it was actually better than I made it out to be. Despite the fact that I was miserable, a lot of people got something out of what I had to say on that trip. And so just because I personally was miserable doesn't mean that it was worthless that I went to that trip. In fact, now that I think about it, I might just make a video about every single mission trip and like what I learned from each of them individually, where maybe I messed up, what I can learn from them. Saint Joseph is actually my confirmation saint, which is why a lot of times I'll slip Joseph into my name in some form. Like when I was capturing footage for Persona 5 Strikers, I entered my name as Paul Joseph because my actual last name, one, it wouldn't fit, and two, when I did my first playthrough without footage, I did Paul David, which is my dad's name. So now I'm doing Paul Joseph because St. Joseph is a great role model for being chaste and humble and behind the scenes. Three things that I really value. So I do apologize if I can't get to all of your requests right away, just because again, even just filming this is a bit of a stretch, but I will definitely try to accommodate as many requests as I can. And I apologize if I don't. If you guys want to send reminders, that's totally okay. But yes, a couple of your suggestions are actually already on the way. Just I've got to find the time and the space to do it. I actually have never played a proper Persona game except for Persona 5 Strikers and Tokyo Mirage Sessions and the version on the Switch, which honestly isn't that much different, but it does let you dress up as Joker and one of the students from the Garrigmach Monastery in Three Houses. So that's something, and I can play Tokyo Mirage Sessions anywhere instead of being trapped on the TV. Other than that, the closest I've gotten to a Persona game would be playing as Joker in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which I really liked how Joker was handled. So when Persona 5 Strikers was announced, I was like, oh, Joker, I know him from Smash. Let's give it a try. And I liked it because I really like Hyrule Warriors. I liked Fire Emblem Warriors. So Persona Warriors sounds great. And I did end up really liking the game. I just didn't like the audio mixing. And there's one more thing I didn't like, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, it was too long. I felt like there were so many times where I thought it was going to end, but it didn't. But if you guys want a little preview of how the Catholic review is going to turn out, let me write this in chat just in case people show up late. I actually do have a couple of Catholic thoughts sprinkled into the review of Persona 5 Strikers. So you can get a little bit of Catholic context, but I'm really going to go to town because that has a really involved story. I definitely want to do it justice. Alrighty. So has anyone not gotten a chance to make a request for what you like on my channel? Because I definitely want to accommodate as many as possible. I don't want to I don't want to feel like I'm completely ignoring my loyal fan base. With all that I give to you guys, you deserve to be able to request what you're getting in return, if that makes any sense. As for me personally, I personally wish that my channel was able to have more testimonies, but I'm not sure how much tolerance people have of how much they can handle. So that's a big struggle of mine is like I would like to tell people the fuller story of how I got over aquaphobia, but if I said every single detail, that would probably freak people out. So knowing where to draw the line is what holds me back from making those kinds of videos. Otherwise, I'd be making them all the time because I have so many stories that I could probably make a video as long as this stream about all the amazing, incredible things I've had to go through, but also some of the terrible things I've had to go through to get to the amazing moments. Alrighty, guys, I'm going to be wrapping up in a couple of minutes, but I just want to give a chance for any last questions slash goodbyes slash late arrivals. Um, so if you want to say your goodbyes, say your thank yous, say your, oh, Paul, can you do this? As I would definitely, if you could send them now, that would be great. Prayer requests, yes, actually. I would really appreciate it if you could pray for me to be able to get a source of income, just because I had a really successful job back in my old county, but I had to quit. The only reason was because I had to move, and now I'm an hour away from that old job. So if I can get something that's closer to where my house is, that would be much appreciated. Yeah, Zoe, I'm really grateful that you stuck around for as long as you did. Real-time strategy, FPS, TBS, turn-based strategy. I do like turn-based strategy games. I've reviewed almost every Paper Mario except Sticker Star and Color Splash. Um, I've beaten and or reviewed every Fire Emblem game that's come out in North America, and I played Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which is turn-based. I don't like Civilization. It seems like it's too overwhelming for me. Like Furim said, I'm not much of a real-time strategy kind of guy. I know the DS version of Age of Empires is turn-based, but it still seems a bit too complicated. I like simple turn-based strategy. Oh, don't forget Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, probably my favorite turn-based strategy game outside of Fire Emblem. Oh, that's cool. Um, well, it would depend on what you're making. So I would recommend maybe like sending a message, a comment, or a tweet to me with more specifics. But I would say for right now, the biggest thing is that you you want to make it in such a way that your audience feels like you as a person are approachable. So it's one thing if you make good videos, because making good videos are a dime a dozen nowadays. But usually the people that make the best videos also have a hard time with actually talking to their community outside of things like live streams or packs or Comic Con. So if you make it so that like you respond to every comment and you actively try to engage with your fans, that gives you more of a personal feel as opposed to feeling like a corporation just shelling out another video to make a quick buck. I personally don't really like it when people do ads or sponsorships or like like this product was brought to you by Raycon. I hate that stuff. So if you want me to watch them personally, that's the biggest thing is don't advertise and be yourselves. I think ultimately being yourself is good life advice for just about anything because I make sure that even when I'm accommodating your requests for videos, that I'm not losing my authentic self in the process. So, for example, if I'm making a video that's normally outside of my area of expertise, I'm still going to do it my way at the end of the day. I'll keep that in mind, Darnell. Yeah. Thanks so much for stopping by. You may actually be one of my oldest friends. Oh, hi, John. I'm actually just about to wrap up because I ran out of water and my throat is getting sore. But I am glad that you got a chance to say hi right before I'm about to leave. I was just curious before I wrap up the stream if there were any kinds of videos you wanted me to make more of, because all of these guys got a chance to have their wishes. So if you want to say like, Paul, make these kind of videos, go for it, because I'm a request taking machine right now. I actually totally forgot it was St. Patrick's Day. Thank you so much for the reminder. COVID has thrown my entire calendar off. My throat's getting really sore. So after your request, John, I am going to have to end. I could just type, but I do feel like I should be. Oh my gosh, is that the time? No, I really need to keep getting going. All right, let's hear it. Thought there was something in my eye. That's why I was moving it funny, just because it looked like they were uneven for a minute there. I've never officially been told if my eyes are perfectly centered or not, just because I don't really pay attention to eyes in general. So I would be curious if you guys, another stream, another stream, if you could comment if you think my eyes are straight or if you think I'm cross-eyed or something, because honestly, I have no idea. Yeah, sounds good, John. I try to respond to just about everything if it's respondable, so I hope you'll never feel like you're being ignored. Well, with that, guys, my voice is officially shot. So sorry I had to end it early on your end, but I'll definitely try to keep all of your requests in mind somewhere along the line. But thank you so much for being so loyal and so willing to put yourselves out there. It really means a lot to me. I do hope I was able to get to all of your comments sufficiently. And if I haven't, just comment again saying, Paul, you ignored me, and I'll do what I can. So, with that, like I end with my regular videos, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and loyalty means more than sub numbers. Bye bye.